Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up.
I was muted. I thought I unmuted myself. I didn't. But I was just saying, welcome in. Happy Saturday to you guys. Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful weekend. My weekend is pretty decent. Not too bad. I've been at the store trying to get things for this table, so that way we can do a members live and decorate it together. That way it's done. It's one less thing. But if you're new to the channel, my name is Tanya or TitaniumBuilt. You can call me either or. Thank you for joining me for a live. And if you're a returning Titan, thanks for joining me for another live. We're going to be talking a little Idaho 4 this evening. Lots of things are coming out. So lots of things to talk about. And I swear I hit that unmute button. That's weird. My music does it now. It mutes me like automatically. So maybe that's what it was. Or the video, one or the other. I think it's the video. Hey, Bug, welcome in. Happy President's Day. Is it really President's Day? On a Saturday? Are you sure it's not on Monday? Hey, Just Breathe, welcome in. Hey, KJ. Oh, maybe, yeah, I definitely will. I like to hear what she has to say. Like, I like to hear what Libby German's grandma has to say. Hey, Mary Beth, welcome in. Hey, Princess Elsa. I'm kind of slow there for a minute. I was reading the chat. Hey, Dawn, welcome in. It's good to see everybody. Lisa's here. Squeaky's here. Doodlebug. If you guys don't mind taking a second, hitting the like button. Catherine, it's great to see you. It's great to see you. Hey, Doodlebug again. Oh, rest in the old knee. Hey, Jody. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think that's true at all. I'm going to say it's not true until I read it. And I've been reading through the transcript and I haven't seen anything of the sort yet. So I know somebody was in here last night saying that. And I was just like, let's read the documents first. Because if that was true, that would be like all over every news station. Like, think about it. You know what I mean? Like every news station. Banfield would be having a heyday with that kind of information. You know? That's why I'm like kind of like hesitant on if it's like, true. Hey, Lenora. Hey, Frenchie. It's good to see everybody in here. Hey, Niners girl. And if you're just, just watching and not talking, welcome in. Welcome in. If you feel like you want to talk, we'd love to have you. Let us know where you're from. I love to know where people are from. Hey, Party of One. I like that name. I like that name. That's cute. Okay, that's where everyone says I was muted. Hey, Jenny. Welcome in, Mandy. It's good to see everyone. And Vision. I think I'm getting to the bottom. Hey, KCG. I'm sure I'll have comments tomorrow. You took so long. I'm like, I do every night. Hey, Wizard Walt. You're from Toronto? I didn't know that, Frenchie. Wow. San Jose, Fort Wayne. I love that. I love knowing where people are from. I worked at, really quick story, I worked at a boutique. This is what it reminds me of anyway. And it was during 2020. We'll just say that. And we were all masked up, and we were masked for like a year or something like that. Well, I didn't get to see any of the people that I was like, like dressing. I like couldn't see their face. So when they would come out of the fitting room, sometimes they would accidentally forget their mask, and we were a good like 20 feet from each other. So we were definitely social distancing, if not more. And so like they would come out and I would see their face and it would make me so excited. It'd get me so excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, a real person. And they would blush and they would like, be like, okay, I want to put my mask back on, because they would feel like, like it was kind of weird taking them off after, having them on for so long. So my Canadian neighbor. Yes. I actually have a good Canada story. I'll have to tell you guys that one day. We might have to save that for Members Live though, guys. That one is a good one though. I've been to Canada a couple times. I love Canada. People there are great. Everybody I've ever met from Canada, fantastic people. Fantastic. So a few things have come out with Brian Kohlberger. We've been going over the updates. We've been really staying on top of it. Well, last night when I got off the live, I saw that Stacy Chapin had come out and did a short interview with Fox 13 Seattle. It's the same people that we've been watching the podcast from. They're doing like a podcast and then like a mini series. Well, she went on to do an interview and we'll watch it. Go watch my video as well. Just kidding. We'll watch it. It's only a couple minutes long, but what she says, I was like, I knew it. So back when, Stacy and her husband and, they were saying that they weren't going to go to the trial. They didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want to, go to the trial. I said, let's just see what happens when the trial is closer, because people do change their mind, about these kind of things. And it kind of almost seems like maybe that's what she's doing is, changing her mind a little bit. So what we'll do is we will catch up on the podcast. I think they actually talk about it in this podcast. And then we'll listen to the interview and then we'll head into the transcript. I did try to color coordinate or whatever, color code the transcript so it's easier for us. Hopefully it is, but there is some things in there that I haven't heard before. So it'll be a good live. I think it's going to be a good live. Hey, Mr. Rosebud, welcome in. Hey, Toby. Shanoodle. I always have to say the last part. I don't know why, but I do. Okay, so yeah, if you guys don't mind just taking a second, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you. We're getting super close to hitting 19,000 subscribers, and I really can't be more humbled about that. Like, wow, seriously, wow. It says it's 23 minutes long. Don't let it fool you. It's only about 13 minutes long. And then it goes black, and I'm like, what the heck happened? So, but it's just the end of the podcast. So we'll listen to this, and then we will discuss it as we go.
Hello and welcome to this latest edition of our Koberger podcast. I'm David Rose here at Fox 13 at Seattle. I'm joined by Ann Bremner, our legal analyst, who has been working with us closely as we followed every step in developments that have happened, and they seem to be happening pretty regularly now as we head toward the trial this August. Ann, thanks for being here today. I appreciate it. We had a big ruling from Judge Hippler this week. Judge Stephen Hippler ruling the defense would not be able to get the evidence, the DNA evidence thrown out in the trial. So can you break down a little bit about what that ruling was in the documents that you've read?
Sure. It is a pleasure to be on with you and an honor, of course, David. I think that there's a lot of court documents in this case that are pretty long, but they basically come down to the fact that there's a challenge to the DNA on the knife sheath. And the judge said there's no right to privacy in a crime scene, a piece of evidence in a crime scene, which seems to be just common sense. But that was something that the defense had argued, that there was a right to privacy in that sheath where the DNA was found that matched allegedly Koberger, and that it was unlawfully seized. Well, the judge said no. That it's clear law that if there's no right to privacy there's no constitutional violation. And then we get into the whole method of going through DNA of ancestors or family members, and that's something that was also challenged, saying, well, you found out who he was through looking at these types of databases. Therefore, there's a constitutional violation. He said, no, there's really no standing here for the defendant, frankly, to challenge the procurement of certain DNA through that method. And then there's so many things in this case that the judge ruled. And of course, I said these are pretty lengthy rulings. But that's the DNA piece. I mean, like, it's like the defense tries to search part of this case, of course.
Is it being slow for you guys? I just want to make sure, because I'm looking at my iPad and it looks like it's like jumping or something. So let me know if it's like being weird. Looks like we're all right. Okay. Maybe I just need to like refresh it. Slow filtering, is it? Like, I don't know. It was just like, yeah, like it looked kind of like it was like being slow for you guys. I don't want that to happen. It could be like, I don't know if it's because my camera's on a different setting or what.
It's the sheath and the connection to the defendant. And the judge has ruled it's not going to change. They can move for reconsideration. I'm sure it'll be denied. But of course, it can be an appeal issue later on, because it's a death penalty case, so it'll be an automatic appeal.
Well, the families were certainly grateful.
Yeah, did you see that? Like, I just totally cut right off the screen. Okay, Vincent was touching this stuff earlier. Let's try it this way. I'm just going to turn my camera off and see if that helps any. I was like, whoa, where did I go for a minute? So I think it's just the camera setting. Give me 1 second. Let me just see if I can see something in here. Nope, it says, yeah. Silly guys. Okay.
Technology that were solved, and I thought I had not seen this particular tactic by the defense to throw out that it was a violation of privacy. I thought it was kind of a long shot. I think you thought that too.
I did.
So as we look forward in the case now, the big discussion over the last week has been these two other male DNA samples that were recovered from areas around the home. Now, we don't know if that's a bloody handprint. We don't know exactly what it is. We don't know if Koberger planted, that DNA there. being the so-called criminal mastermind that some people think he might be.
Right.
But what does this do for the defense, or what does it do to mess up the prosecution's case going forward? Are people overreacting, saying that Kohberger is going to get off because these two other male DNA samples were found?
Absolutely. I think they'd be overreacting. This is a very strong case, and it could be DNA from, remember, this is a party house, and he had a lot of students that lived there anyway. And we don't have any evidence that there's some person that could be connected to a crime when it was left or anything else. And when you're saying somebody else did it as a defendant, you've got to have kind of a train of circumstances to say, we used to call it the Saudi defense. Some other dude did it. You know, there's something out there to say someone else did. The fact that there's other DNA, I mean, that was found in Amanda Knox's case, you know, other cases. So it's not a smoking gun. And here's the other thing. When they were challenging certain of the warrants in this case, that there's something they asked for, which is called a Franks hearing. And that's a hearing where you say, I want to have an evidentiary hearing because I can show as a threshold to get that hearing that there was false information in the affidavit for the search warrant, or there was something or some things left out that would be material to the finding of probable cause by a judge. And the judge in this case denied the Franks hearing, said there was no evidence of either of those things, that things were withheld, omitted, or misrepresented. And if so, if there's anything like that, it would have changed the probable cause determination. So that's part of this too, which is, well, if they'd said in the affidavit that there was some other DNA, or said in the affidavit that one of the witnesses heard someone coming up and down the stairs, would it make a difference? And the judges said no, so no hearing on Franks.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Kohberger reportedly said, who else did you arrest after
Yes.
he was arrested? And so I think some people are wondering, was he talking about maybe members of his family, or was he talking about perhaps that he had left other DNA at the scene and wondered to know if his plan had worked?
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And, you know, the other thing in terms of looking at search warrants, I don't know if you want to get into this yet, but they had a no-knock warrant in Pennsylvania. And then he challenged the search of garbage, which you don't have a right to privacy in trash. And of course, he was out in his pajamas, wasn't it? And like 4 a.m, going to his neighbor's trash and getting rid of evidence. So there was a lot here to get rid of potentially by the defense. And they didn't, it was a grand sweep for the prosecution.
And you've represented a lot of people, you've defended a lot of people. How would you be feeling right now if you were his attorney about your chances in this case, or about your strategy?
I'd be really worried. I mean, I think they did a really good job of at least raising some of these issues and briefing them and being meticulous. And I don't see now any other evidence that could really be challenged. And so the question is, here's a few things, I guess. How could it be that he could kill 4 people so quickly and not have any blood on him, like we know that he didn't, apparently? And what would his motive be? You don't have to prove motive, as we well know in prosecution, but why? You know, why would he, you know, want to do something like this horrific crime? And so he might have messaged some of the individuals in this case. What does that prove? I mean, social media, people do that all the time. So I guess you have to kind of do it that way and hope that you can avoid the death penalty. I mean, a lot of times the win is to avoid the death penalty, to get some sympathy for him, some doubt about how could this happen? This is really astonishing that he was able to do this. But obviously he did, or someone did.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, his mental state. Idaho doesn't have the insanity defense. We're hearing that the prosecution requested his health records, maybe even his mental health records. How does that play into this, his state of mind?
Well, it doesn't have the insanity defense. They don't in Idaho. And they also, of course, have the death penalty by firing squad. So why he committed the crime in Idaho instead of our state, Washington, where there would be an insanity defense and there would not potentially be the death penalty. So there's some evidence of the visual snow that he may have had. There's also some evidence of some heroin addiction, some evidence of some behavioral issues that he's had, you know, with women, and including at Wazoo and in Pennsylvania. So looking at those kinds of things, I mean, but I don't see how they're relevant if there's no insanity defense. And I don't see how the state gets into evidence his poor activity, I guess you could say, or the way that he's treated women anywhere, because it doesn't really show he's a murderer.
And I guess it goes to what else we might not know. There was that 5-hour closed door hearing. In your experience, what happens in those kind of hearings, and why aren't they open to the public?
Well, I think the judge has done a great job on the whole question of what's open to the public and what's not. Remember in the beginning, David, that they all stipulated to basically a gag order because it protects the defendant. You know, you don't want to have a case where there's so much evidence out there that contain a jury, that he's not going to have a fair trial. So that's what the judge is trying to do, is make sure that he gets a fair trial. And the other thing is, in terms of his constitutional rights, it's his right to a fair trial, but it's our right to basically scrutinize the proceedings, but basically for his benefit, that the public looks and can see the proceedings to make sure they're fair. So that's what's happening in these closed door hearings. And they're not necessarily the types of hearings that might be sensitive in nature, but they may be hearings where potential evidence may not come into evidence. And we know prosecutors ethically can't talk about evidence that may not come in tainting a case potentially. So I'd be guessing at what's closed, but I think the judge has been careful. A lot of pleadings in this case, from the get-go.
800 pages of court documents or something,
Right.
Just massive. How
Right.
difficult is it going to be, or how time consuming to seat a jury in this case?
Well, we always
800 documents. Do they mean like 800 filings? Because there's not 800 filings. I think this might mess up again, so I might have to turn my camera back off. But dang it, I'll have to probably turn it off. For some reason tonight, my camera's making the videos not play. Sticky fingers was touching my computer today.
always say that you have to be living under a rock, especially in Idaho, right, to not heard this case. But that's not the test, as you well know. It's whether the potential juror, given whatever they may have heard, can set aside that information and hear the case solely based on what witnesses say and what evidence is admitted in court. That's the test. And jurors, they're presumed to follow the law. I've always thought in my very long career, jurors usually do. They take an oath. They say the highest duty of citizenship is jury duty. I think Abraham Lincoln said that. I think they rise to the occasion and they do that.
No, I always say that DNA doesn't lie, just because I've covered so many different cases and been involved here in Washington, that ultimately the DNA, it came down to the DNA for the jury. I know the defense in this case is going to try to raise all kind of questions. Were there other suspects involved? Was Kohberger not the suspect at all? What about that DNA on those other two men that have not been identified? Does the DNA really make all of the difference in this case, do you think?
I think it does. People could look at OJ.
Okay, so we'll hear about the male DNA tonight, but I did hear, and it could have been through the transcripts, that they didn't test the unknown male DNA because they already had the knife sheath and the connection to Brian Kohberger, and they knew that knife sheath was more than likely connected to the murder weapon. So they didn't want to put in another, if you go into CODIS, I guess, and put in another sample, it'll delete your last sample that you put in, which I think's craziness. That should be something that's fixed immediately, but that's what they're trying to say, is why they didn't test it. And the hand railing that it was on was the hand railing from the second floor to the first floor. And I've been saying stuff about that door being open. I've been saying the front door ever since this case started. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Now, what I don't know is, why didn't they, if they may have, and they just didn't say, but why didn't they test it at least against Kohberger's DNA to see if it was a possible match between Kohberger and that? I mean, I'm assuming they did that. They should have.
O.J. Simpson's case where it didn't, but they had a potential witness that had a bias, Mark Furman, that they argued could have planted evidence. They had things like that. And they also had a criminalist, Dennis Fung, that made a lot of mistakes, remember, not wearing gloves, things like that in the collection of evidence. I don't think they have that here. And keep in mind, it's been many years since that case. DNA, I think to most jurors is CSI kind of evidence. And we know that the investigators have been very meticulous in this case. And it's been out there in the news that his DNA was on that sheet. And other people say, did he like plant that because he's like trying to do the perfect crime? Or was he like trying to show, catch me if you can kind of thing, like dropping a piece of evidence to see if the police could even figure out who he is? But the bottom line is, it is what it is. It is the sheath to the murder weapon that has his DNA on it.
Now, I want to talk about one more thing, because I've seen a lot of criticism and controversy online about this. There was that hearing where they had the questionnaires for potential jurors, and they were asking when they were talking about moving the case all the way to Ada County. And I think some people may have misinterpreted what that was all about. Can you illuminate a little bit why some people are interpreting that as to say that there was no proof that Koberger might have been stalking one of the women?
You mean in terms of the change of venue? Because when you have a change of venue motion.
Yeah, they asked those questions. They had the 12 questionnaires that they were asking, and people seem to be focusing on that one question, asking about, had you heard there was a stalking in this case?
Exactly. So in order to get it, only the defense can ask for a change of venue. And of course they did in this case. And so part of that, at least in this case, and oftentimes is a survey to see, you can establish to the judge, look, this is our potential pool and we've got a problem. So just by asking that question doesn't mean that there were other suspects. It's simply testing out what this potential jury pool had heard or what their perceptions would be. It's not evidence, it's not. And I keep seeing things on the web about this case, which I applaud that people want to participate in the system and understand these cases. But we can't try these cases in the media. We can't try them on the internet. We can't try them in chat rooms or, any, lone crime or any court TV, which I do. We have to try them on the evidence. And I think this is a case where you have to be scrupulous as the judge to protect the rights of the defendant, but also be transparent enough that the public can see what's really happening in the case.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we appreciate your time so much. We're going to talk so many times in the months ahead as we lead up to the trial. Hopefully we'll still continue to have the trial this summer and there won't be any major delays. But this was a big development this week with the judge denying the defense's request to throw out the DNA. We're going to delve into
not just the DNA. He said, we're not going to let you we're not going to let you suppress the DNA, the warrant on Koberger's person, the warrant on Koberger's house, the warrant on Koberger's apartment. None of it. None of it's being suppressed. None of it's being thrown out. It's all staying in. It's all staying in. I think this was the end of this. See, it just goes to this, like Brian Koberger, and then just turns to a black screen for 15 minutes or something, 10 minutes. I don't know. I guess they thought maybe people would watch it and just keep on watching. I don't know. But I looked at gift memberships, and I guess you can't currently get memberships on YouTube Live on an iPhone, but you can do so on a desktop using the YouTube website. Isn't that so weird? You think that YouTube would have their crap together by now. I mean, we're in 2025, people. So let's go over here. Let's listen to Miss Chapin and see what she has to say. She had to say a lot. Not a lot. For it being a 2-minute interview, we got a lot of new information out of her, I feel like. So I'm going to go ahead and play it here. If you guys don't mind, take a second, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you do appreciate the content, we talk true crime daily here. The reason why my camera is not on tonight is because it makes the video lag for some reason tonight. So you don't get to see me that much. I'm going to turn it on and off here as I can.
Days after an Idaho judge denied motions to exclude key evidence in the trial for Brian Koberger, we're now hearing from the mother of one of the victims.
Yeah, Koberger is charged in the brutal deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. And this afternoon, Fox 13 Shira Matsuzawa spoke with one of the victims' moms.
Sitting down with Ethan Chapin's mom, Stacy, she says they're blessed to have had 20 years with him, but they're constantly finding a way to move forward.
It's always kind of right at the forefront, so you have to learn to live with that.
Ethan, along with Xana Kronodal, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez were stabbed to death in an off-campus home in November of 2022. Just last month, attorneys for Brian Koberger, the man accused of killing the 4 University of Idaho students, filed motions asking the court to throw out key DNA evidence in this case. This week, Judge Stephen Hippler denied those motions.
How could you not? Let's be honest. How could a judge not allow DNA? I mean, he basically said it in one of his hearings. He said, it's admissible every day and twice on Sundays. I mean,
boom, Miss Chapin's coming in with that.
And that's how it would have been, you would have had to have fought tooth and nail if somebody didn't allow the DNA in it. That's crazy.
The ruling bringing the case one step closer to the trial scheduled to begin this summer. A trial the Chapin family has been adamant about not attending in the past.
I just feel this impending storm that's coming. We are, reconsidering, whether or not we'll go.
Listen to this.
That is a very difficult thing to think about. But, if we have to go, I don't know who else can represent Ethan other than his family.
Exactly.
Stacy's focus.
Like that part got me, like I get cold chills, like hearing her say that. Nobody in this world can represent Ethan better than his mother and father and his siblings if they decide to go as well. That's just my personal opinion. I think that if they don't go, at least for some of the hearings, they may regret it, but they don't need to go to hear the gruesome stuff. They don't need to see the pictures. They don't need to see their loved ones like that. But I think some of the hearings would be good for them to kind of go to.
This is on Ethan's siblings, who are set to graduate this May as a triplet. Ethan would have been alongside them. His legacy now helping others get an education. The family started the foundation, which has since awarded $55,000 in scholarships to 35 kids, all in Ethan's name. Shira Matsuzawa, Fox 13 News.
We will have new insight from Shira's exclusive interview with Stacy Chapin. And that includes her thoughts on Bryan Kohberger and a new book project that she's part of. You can hear all about it in the next episode of Fox 13's docuseries, Bryan Kohberger Inside the Idaho Murders. Episode 1 is already streaming on demand on the Fox local app.
Okay, so it'll be in March. Hold on. Sorry, I had to cough. It'll be in March when that comes out. So we watched episode 1. If you didn't get it, catch that episode, you want to watch it. It's on it's on my playlist. I have 2 different playlists, but they have a lot of the same videos. One is the trial, I believe the trial against Bryan Kohberger, and then the other one is like the Idaho murders, the playlist. Or maybe Idaho 4, something like that. I should know. I mean, I've got like a gazillion videos. So let's go. I think I could probably keep my camera on now. Of course, for the reading part, have my camera on for the reading part. Let me zoom in for you guys so you guys can see this. Now, I did use our little color coding system that we have. So what we normally do on the channel, if we're reading something from the defense, it'll be, we put it in like blue, like some of it will be in blue. If it's from the prosecution, pink. And then if it's a court, like court document, we usually put that in yellow. So tonight I did the same here whenever I was like highlighting their names. So if you're wondering, that's why. And I'll tell you, when we get down there again, the colors and what they stand for. Actually, I might have a banner. Let's see. All right, here we go. So that's, I mean, it just says documents, but that's okay. Are all like, we'll just make it like that. Keep it like that. That's fine. Yeah, Frenchie, I agree. I think they should be there for some of the trial. And I think they're, kind of realizing that maybe they should be there a little bit. Because, I mean, for her to say that, they were very adamant that, I mean, for the last over 2 years that they were not going to that trial. I mean, it was to the point where I didn't even think that they were going to follow like the proceedings or anything. And I mean, obviously they're keeping up. They're keeping up to date on the proceedings and everything. So, and let me grab my little hair up there. Make sure, am I loud enough? I hope I'm loud enough for you guys. I should be. So this is the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. This is basically, they had hearings on January 23rd and January 24th. We got to see the January 24th proceedings, but we were not, they were closed on the 23rd. So this is the transcript from the 23rd, because there was no cameras in the courtroom, or I think they were probably in chambers when they were talking. I don't know if they're in the court. courtroom or the chambers. Probably courtroom, actually. But this is a transcript and it's been redacted. So what happened was Judge Hippler said, hey, I'm going to put out the transcript of this proceedings, at least the transcript part. I'm going to give the prosecution a copy and we'll give you the defense a copy, and y'all have 14 days to redact whatever you want redacted in this, in these files, or I'm putting them out. So this is what we got. We got a lot more than what I thought we would get, actually. I thought everything would be redacted. But we got 175 pages of them talking. So we're going to go through the first 30 some today, because we'll go pretty quick. And then on our next live, we'll go through a big chunk of them on the next live. So this is from the January 23rd hearing, 2025 at 9 a.m. This is certified transcript. Stenographer Christy. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. So appearances for the state. I should have put this in. I should have color coordinated this, but I didn't. William Thompson, Ashley Jennings, Latah County Prosecutor's Office. Jeffrey D. Nye, Office of the Attorney General. And then for the defendant, Ann Taylor, Jay Logston, and Elisa Massif. This is the index. We don't need to go through that. Okay. So Thursday, January 23rd, Boise, Idaho. Closed proceedings. And, I didn't do Mr. Thompson right there, but a lot of these are questions and answers. So once we get to that part, it'll go really quick and it'll flow pretty fast. It'll flow better because it'll only be two people that are talking. So it says, the court says, let's go on the record in State versus Kohlberger. Present in the courtroom today are the defendant with counsel, Miss Taylor and Miss Massif. Is Mr. Logston here? Miss Taylor says, Mr. Logston is here, Your Honor. The court says, for the state, we have Mr. Thompson, Mr. Nye, and Miss Jennings. Mr. Thompson said, yes, Your Honor. The court said, we have a number of people in the courtroom. They're in the courtroom. I read this earlier. I should have known. Are they all part of counsel team or witnesses that are to be called today? Miss Taylor said, both, Your Honor. And the court said, outside of those two categories, that's everybody. Miss Taylor said, everybody here is a consultant or witness. I'm not quite sure who's on the prosecutor's side. Mr. Thompson speaks up and says, Miss Allen is from the Attorney General's office and Miss Workman is our victim's witness coordinator. They don't come with a whole bunch of people, I guess. The court said, all right, before we get going this morning, I understand the first portion of today's hearings will be put on evidence related to the IGG suppression and Frank's issue. In terms of witnesses, what are we doing in terms of excluding and or exceptions to exclude based on experts? Ms. Taylor said, Your Honor, the parties have stipulated that the witnesses may be inside the courtroom for the entirety of the proceedings. The state has their witnesses. That's a remote witness, and that's fine for that person to listen in. So it said, the court says, so the person is appearing remotely. Mr. Nye steps in and says, yes, Your Honor, that's correct. And the court says, do we have them up? And the clerk, she comes chiming in and she says, they are not connected. The court says, they are not connected. Did you give them a link? Did you ask for a link? Reading that, just even reading through these, he's ready to go. He's ready to go. He wants these people to be prepared for their hearings. So he says, they are not connected. Did you give them a link? Did you ask for a link? Mr. Nye says, yeah, they let us know they have received the link, but we're okay getting started, Your Honor. He doesn't need to be here. And the court says, I was told by my law clerk that the defense intends to refer to exhibits that they don't have copies here today for the court. Ms. Taylor says, Your Honor, there was a stipulation that all of the exhibits that were attached to the IGG motion and the Franks motion would be admitted. I'm happy to give the court my copies. That was about 1,000 pages worth of stuff, so I did not print and haul down an extra copy. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm assuming with my non-law degree, that you would always bring a copy of everything that you can possibly print off, even if it's the whole damn internet. And you would bring a copy for the court, for the judge to have in his hand. And that's just my humble opinion. You would think you'd be prepared, you know, even if it's 1,000 pages. And I would never say that was about 1,000 pages worth of stuff, so I did not print and haul down an extra copy. Now, you know how Ann Taylor talks. You know how she was saying how she was talking when she said that. I can hear her in my head. And it says, but I'm happy to give the court my copy if the court wants a hard copy. And the court says, Mr. Hippler, I should just say judge, I've got a copy in the file. The only problem is trying to find what you're talking about quickly if you're referring to a distinct item within that. Typically, I'm provided copies of the specific exhibits witnesses go over. I'll do my best, but ... Now he's just being an a-hole, you know, but, you know, I like it. Ms. Taylor said, I'm happy to provide the court my copy or use the Elmo so the court can see the display. The court said, all right, we'll do what we can. In the future, if you know what exhibits you're going to be talking about in particular, you should have 2 copies available for the court. Ms. Taylor said, I will, Your Honor. This ain't her first rodeo. But that's what, you know what I mean? Like, we can't be like giving her passes like this all the time. Like, you know better. You should have brought an extra copy of that crap for the court. Anything else, the court said, before we get started? Mr. Nye, no, Your Honor, I don't believe so. Ms. Taylor says, I don't believe so either. Thank you. Court says, all right. Mr. Hippler says, all right, the defense may call its first witness. Okay, here we go. Let me get a drink. And Taylor talks first, so. Hey, Ludwig, welcome in. Hey, Phantom. I was over on the other screen, so if I'm on, I'll be reading. So, hey, Tim. Hey, everybody, welcome in. Squeaky, you being good in there? Are you being good in the chat? Hey, Bigster, Big Star. Judge said to supply a copy last hearing. Oh man, that's even worse. I don't remember hearing that, but you know, I bet you he did. I bet you he did, because he's one step ahead. He is one step ahead of everybody. I feel like, you know, he wants to get this trial, like he wants it to stay on track, and he is not no Judge John Judge. That's what I'm going to say, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I like Judge and his little boyishness, you know. He would have been cute if you were like standing in front of him for like a speeding ticket. Unaliving 4 kids, you know, young adults, probably not, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Judge Hippler, this is more his speed. So it says, Your Honor, the defense would call Brett Payne. Says the court says, Hippler, just to make sure we're not live, right, Sandra? That's the clerk's name, I guess. Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony you're about to, you know, give now before the court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Do they not say so help you God anymore? Probably not. They probably threw that out. I forgot to put Detective Payne's thing in here, but I didn't have a color for him, so he's not going to be highlighted. So it says, I do. The clerk says, thank you. Ms. Taylor says, may I approach the podium, Your Honor? And he says, yes, please. And it says, Detective Corporal Brett Payne, having been duly sworn, testifies as follows. And this is direct examination by Miss Ann Taylor. So, you know, I'm just going to go through it, like talk like if they were talking back and forth. So she's going to be starting it. Good morning, ma'am. Will you state your full name, please? Brett Payne. How is your last name spelled? Payne. What do you do for a living? I'm the detective corporal at Moscow Police or PD currently. How long have you been at Moscow Police Department? Almost 7 years now. Prior to Moscow Police Department, did you have law enforcement experience? Yes, ma'am. What was that? I was in the military police corps, the U.S. Army, for 3 years prior to coming to Moscow PD. Are you post certified? Yes, ma'am. In the course of your responsibilities with Moscow police, were you handling an investigation involving homicides at 1122 King Road? Yes, ma'am. What was your role? I was assigned lead detective after about the first 24 hours in that case. And she says, and does that mean you have responsibility for the case and evidence? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. As such, did you participate in a search for a suspect? Yes, ma'am. And when was the first time you heard Brian Kohlberger's name? The first time I heard Brian Kohlberger's name was December 19th, 2022. And what was that a result of? That was a result of investigative genetic genealogy that was being undertaken by the FBI. We had a phone call that evening and we were told Brian Kohlberger's name. And before that, Mr. Kohlberger was not on your radar? No, ma'am. Before December 19th, was the FBI cast team member I don't know how to say this word. We're going to have her say it. Collocated. Okay. Before December 19th, was the FBI cast team member collocated with you? Yes, ma'am. How long had he been collocated with you? I don't remember exactly, but it had been several weeks at that point. And that was Nicholas Balance. Yes, ma'am. What other FBI team members were collocated with you? He says, goodness, a lot. We had technical assistant Maria Tyndall, S.A. Jacobson, and numerous other FBI special agents that were there to assist. By the time it was December 19th and you first heard of Brian Kohlberger's name, had you reviewed videotapes? Yes, ma'am. How many hours of videotapes do you think you reviewed? I don't remember a lot. I can't give you an accurate representation. In those videotapes, did you focus in on any particular ones that were of interest to you? Yes, ma'am. In particular would be are you talking about addresses that were, how would you like me to refer to them? He's like kind of confused, you know. She says, how you nicknamed the cameras. And we will know the nicknames. We will know exactly what cameras these are whenever they read them off. I should have pulled them all up, but it says, so the first one was from 1112 King Road. That, and if y'all know, everyone knows that's the blue house. That is, if this is the King Road residence, it's the one like right here that had the camera, the light bulb camera. Now, I am going to say, if this address for the Linda Lane footage ends up being that same address, I will apologize for not watching all 80 hours worth of Linda Lane footage. But I still wouldn't do it. I still wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go back. So it says, so the first one was from 1112 King Road. It was a surveillance camera, an exterior surveillance camera on a house that was immediately to the northeast of 1122 King Road. There was some footage from a Linda Lane camera. I forget the address off the top of my head. There was footage from the A&W, which is at the corner of Lauder and South Main, or Highway 50, or Highway 95. There was footage from an address on Indian Hills. There was also and I think that's the one where the house was blurred out. Remember the camera and the house got blurred out later on? Yeah. There was also footage from a Ridge Road camera. It's either that was either the Indian Hills or the Ridge Road, one of those two. And that's how we reference to them, was basically by those names. But those cameras are like when you're either going in or you're going out of the neighborhood. So question from to Ann, or Ann Taylor says, with those references in mind and keeping December 19th in mind, which of these cameras were your focus before you learned of Brian Kohlberger's name? He says, I would say all of them were of importance before that. And it was later that other cameras became important. Is that right? Those were the main ones we relied upon for vehicles in particular, is what those ones were. And then she says, I'm going to return to that in just a minute, but I want to talk to you about interviews. Did you interview any people in relation to the case before December 19th? Yes, ma'am. And did other officers interview people? Yes, ma'am. Were some of those people the roommates of the people at 1122 King? Yes, ma'am. Did you review other officers' work as well? Yes, ma'am. Did you have regular meetings with other officers about the status of the investigation? Yes, ma'am. And they may have cut something out here because it says were some of the people in the roommates, it doesn't say anything else. Do you know what I mean? And what did the roommates say and what did they do? And Anne was trying to cut down DM's statements. I feel like maybe they did redact something through there. Did you have regular meetings with other officers about the status of the investigation? Yes, ma'am. Did you have any role in deciding to pursue investigative genetic genealogy? Yes, ma'am. It was a collaborative decision amongst the command team to go that route. But yes, I was a part of that. And here, I forgot that was up there. Let me do this. So you can see the, paper better. Or the document, you know what I mean. And thanks for being here, guys, and listening to me read these. We do find out information. We're going to find out so much just with them going back and forth. I feel like now until trial, we're going to find out stuff. So, were you aware that Othram Laboratories began the work of the investigative genetic genealogy? Yes, ma'am. What kinds of information did you receive from Othram Laboratories? I don't remember what was received from Othram directly. I knew they were conducting their specific type of work. I don't remember exactly what they provided to us. Did you receive some documents from them? Yes, ma'am. Okay, do you know how many documents you received from them? I do not. Was it one time or more than one time? I don't remember. Were you a part of the discussion to take the work from Othram and go to the FBI? Yes, ma'am. Why was that decision made? From my understanding, granted, this is my first encounter with investigative genetic genealogy. So again, as a collaborative discussion, we decided that because the Idaho State Police Lab and Othram had essentially exhausted their resources, this is how I understood it, that we would move to the FBI because they had more resources available to pursue this particular avenue. Do you know what more resources the FBI had? The only thing I'm privy to was that they had more databases that they could compare the sample to. That was the extent of my knowledge. Yeah. Do you have familiarity with the databases that the rules that apply to those? Oh, that rule. What? And the rules that apply to those. Sorry. No, ma'am. I'll save those questions. Okay, she said. What was your communications with the FBI about the IgG? He says, so our communications were just via telephone. The sample was sent to the FBI. I don't remember the date it was given over to them. But after that, there was very few conversations. And if they happened at all, they were just telephonic advising us that the process was still in the works and they would let us know when or if they had anything of interest for us. Damn, FBI, don't call us. We ain't going to call you. Literally, they're saying, don't call us. We'll call you if we have something. If we don't have something, we're not going to reach out. But if I was a police officer, I would be on the phone every 5 seconds. I would be wanting to know if they were done. If they had the DNA, if they had the sample done or, they had a hit. But I guess the FBI don't play like that. They're just sit there and wait. And when we're ready for you, then we'll come and get you. Hey, Kathy. Hey, PKC. Hey, welcome in, everybody. If I did miss you, I'm sorry. I'm on the other screen, so it's, Oh, this transcript's 175. But we're not going to go over all 175 tonight. We're just going to go over the first 37 or something like that. And then we'll go over a big chunk in our next live. So we'll probably break it into 3. let's see. It says, do you know that what files or documents went to the FBI from Othram? I do not remember. Did you receive documents from the FBI did you receive documents from the FBI? And he says, in relation to IGG, and Taylor says, yes. And he says, I believe after the fact, after we received Kohlberger's name, we did receive documents, but I don't remember what they were. Do you know how many documents related to IGG you received from the FBI? No, ma'am. I believe as part of the discovery, it was in the thousands of pages, but that's the best of my knowledge. And she says, thank you for that. All right. So once you have Mr. Kohlberger identified, what's your understanding of what that meant to have his name? And he says, just in relation to the overall investigation, is that, and she interrupts, says, yes. So the only thing that was given to us was Brian Kohlberger's name. That was it. It was conveyed to us by the FBI that it was to be taken as no more than a tip. That was it. So once we received his name, we set about doing basically an independent verification of whether or not he was involved in this crime. And Anne says, I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more, but do you know why the FBI connected Brian Kohlberger to the case? So on December 20th, if memory serves, we had a secondary meeting with the FBI via Teams. If memory serves, and they simply walked us through the family tree and how they did that. Now, I don't remember the details of all that. It was an in-depth conversation that, to be honest, is above my head. But they essentially worked their way through the family tree and arrived at a conclusion that Brian Kohlberger was a person we should look into as a tip. That's the extent of my knowledge of how they did that. How was Brian Kohlberger, the name you received as a tip, linked to the case? He wasn't until after December 19th. What item of evidence did they link Brian Kohlberger to? And he says, I'm not sure what you're asking as far as before December 19th. Is that what you're referring to? And Taylor says, yeah. We didn't have one at that point. Why did you become interested in learning the identity of Brian Kohlberger? Not quite sure I understand your question. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously the one thing we had that we thought was a very strong piece of evidence in this case. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as a potential avenue of identifying a suspect. That makes sense. Is it your understanding that the FBI's work said it was Brian Kohlberger's DNA on the sheath? And he answers, that is not my understanding. She says, what is your understanding? My understanding is that the FBI concluded that Brian Kohlberger was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Brian Kohlberger's DNA is on the knife sheath. That was never conveyed to me. On December 20th, when that happened, when he's somebody you should look into, what did you do? He says, we had already started looking into him from the previous evening. So that day, December 20th, we began going through basically our sort of standard investigative procedures that we had been doing throughout the investigation for various leads, to include basic DMV searches, NCIC offline returns, NCIC searches. We have a database called TLO, which is a credit-based search we use to find basic information. So we started doing all those things, looking for information on Mr. Kohlberger. And what you found is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? And he says, correct. Talk to me about going to Pennsylvania for the trash pool, Ann Taylor says. And he says, well, I wasn't in Pennsylvania for the trash pool. She says, I'll ask somebody else that later. All right, so after you received Brian Kohlberger's name and he hadn't been on your radar at all before, is that right? Correct. All right. You had pursued interviews and surveillance video. Had you pursued pursued evidence found inside the scene at 1122 King? Yes, ma'am. What efforts did you make to pursue unknown male B? He says you have to be more specific. I don't remember exactly where unknown male B came from. She says, if I told you the lab report showed unknown male B came from a BLOOD spot on the handrail going between the second and the first floor, does that help jog your memory? Yes, ma'am. Why did you not pursue that person? This is where I read it. Okay, so let me show you real quick. So it's still not letting me navigate this thing very good, but hold on. Okay, so it'll be this one here. So this is the front door. So it was this hand railing right here. Like somewhere on this hand railing is where they found unknown male, BLOOD. YouTube will get you for that, saying that word. It's so stupid. But I'm wondering, was it from like a previous, fight? Two guys, maybe two fraternity guys or just two guys in general, they're at the house partying, they get in a fight on the stairs, or one guy is bleeding coming down the stairs, maybe a nosebleed just from having a nosebleed, maybe not even anything nefarious, just a nosebleed. There's, I'm sure, a way that they can test to see how long that spot was there, like if it's, how old the spot is. But I think they should have done a little more testing into that. And it says, why did you not pursue that person? At that point in time, we had already received Mr. Kohlberger's name, and from what my understanding was, entering another DNA profile into CODIS would remove the previous one we had from the knife sheath. So if memory serves, the discussion was, we'll hold off, we'll stay with the one from the knife sheath. If we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later date or later time. And then Anne says, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Were you not aware of unknown male B until after December 19th when you knew Brian Kohlberger's name? No, ma'am, I was aware of that before. How about unknown male D? A, B, C, D. Okay, how are we getting to D? Again, you're going to have to be more specific. If I told you unknown male D came from a lab report from a sample of BLOOD on some gloves, not just one, gloves, outside the house, does that refresh your memory? Yes, ma'am, it does. You're aware of that too? Yes, ma'am. I want to back up and talk about the affidavits. I think you told me in a prior hearing that you were the person that wrote Exhibit A, or the affidavit in support of the search warrants, when it came to looking for things about Brian Kohlberger. Did I understand that right? Yes, ma'am. And the affidavit, when you begin, was that on December 23rd to get records. As far as when I started writing the affidavit, is that what you're referring to? The first search warrant that applied to Brian Kohlberger. I believe it was December 23rd, yes. When did you begin writing that affidavit? I began writing that affidavit long before that. It had been a running affidavit because at the beginning of it, there's the walkthrough of the crime scene. There's numerous things. It was a living document. So we just add information to it. I'd say that document started, I don't know, couldn't give an exact date, a couple weeks prior to that, even before we knew Mr. Kohlberger's name. Help me understand what parts were added after you knew Mr. Kohlberger's name. Well, to walk down the line best I can. So obviously there's the initial component, which is the crime scene, the testimony from the roommates. Then after that, it shifts to, I believe, the first mention of, or the first component was that Brian Kohlberger was pulled over by Corporal Duke on a traffic stop. He was also contacted by WSU police. His vehicle was ran by WSU PD officers. Then after that, we included trying to walk down through the thing without it in front of me. Then we included the vehicle information that was about the white Elantra. And after that, we included his residence and that he had hit LPRs or his vehicle had been seen on LPRs between Moscow or Pullman, and Pennsylvania. And then there was the component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. What do you mean component about where he lives in Pennsylvania? What does that mean? Welcome in, everybody. Welcome on in, guys. And then there was the component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. What does that have to do with? I don't know. That's weird. So question from Anne. Let's go back to that time before you started adding the traffic stop. The affidavit contains some information that you gained from other officers. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you didn't write large parts of the affidavit. Is that also right? I took a lot of language from experts and other officers and agents. That's correct. Are you aware your affidavit, your living document, was claimed by other people as their own original document, not giving you credit, but claimed as their own? Are you aware of that? What? Yes, ma'am. Are you aware that you probably know because Nicholas Balance was collocated with you? Did the two of you continually work on language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Did you and Nicholas Balance produce a map to show a possible route of travel for your... Sorry, I'm going to read that over again. Did you and Nicholas Balance produce a map to show a possible route of travel for your suspect? Yes, ma'am. So then Ms. Taylor says, and Your Honor, I am at Defendant's 1A. I can either put it up here or approach the court with the map. And the court says, can I see what you're referring to? There's been a lot of Exhibit A's in this case. Just as housekeeping, you had mentioned you stipulated to the omission of sounds like a large chunk of records, 1,000 pages. Ms. Taylor says, yes, Your Honor, it's the stack of exhibits that came behind the amended Frank's motion from the defense. The court says, okay, and you want me to search through that to find stuff that you want me to rely on? Meaning, like, because you didn't bring in the paperwork you were supposed to bring in. Like, you're supposed to bring him in and have it highlighted and stuff like, this is what I'm going to show you. And that way, when I get to this and I start like rambling on and you don't know what I'm talking about, you can refer to this document right here. You don't have to flip through 1,000 pages to figure out where she's at, you know, like where her headspace is at. I like him. I really do. So she says, I don't. I'm happy to give you my copy. He says, no, I don't mean that. As you know, I entered an order in this case that I'm not going to scour the record to find things that support your claims in this case. Bam, man, he mad. You have to cite them in particularity. And so I get concerned when I'm told I'm going to get a large document to be admitted that doesn't sound like it's going to be the focus of the actual hearing or much of it. Ms. Taylor says, well, Your Honor, I do have quite a few more questions for this detective. I am trying to be mindful of my role here with him as far as Frank's and his work and IGG. But when it's time for me to argue Frank's, what I planned to do was to argue from the exhibits, identify them for the court, and hand the court my copy. So I don't expect the court to thumb through all the D1 and D2s. I just didn't bring another 1,000 pages with me. Stop saying that. He doesn't care. He wants the 1,000 pages. You should have printed off the damn 1,000 pages, Ann Taylor. The court said, I understand. My concern wasn't so much that I had in front of me as actual paper. My concern is littering the record with things that are not referred to. If you're going to refer to specific documents in there, that's fine. But don't expect me to go looking at things you don't refer to necessarily. Ms. Taylor says, oh, I absolutely understand that, Your Honor. Those were all put in that so the counsel would be advised. And he says, the fact that I omit this group of documents does not mean that it is something that can be relied on, absent you actually using it. Ms. Taylor says, Absolutely. I understand that, Your Honor. I don't expect the court to read my mind. Thank you for that. Shooting one back at him. Question. Detective, I'm going to attempt to put this map up here. Is this the map you and Nicholas Balance came up with to help with probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to leave that there for just a minute, and I'm going to ask you some other questions. I want to back up to the part of the first affidavit. This is asking for AT&T records. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And this AT&T record, is that the first set 48 hours of AT&T records? Yes, ma'am, I believe so. And are these AT&T records related to the phone Mr. Kohlberger had? Yes, ma'am. All right. And so in doing this affidavit, you have this working document, and I'm going to start with DM. If I say DM, do you know who I'm talking about? Yes, ma'am, I do. And she is one of the roommates. Is that right? The court says we're sealed. You can use the name. Miss Taylor says, I can use the name, trying to get a habit. And then this is Miss Taylor saying question. Okay, so by Miss Taylor, it says redacted. I'm assuming Dylan Mortensen. I don't know why they redacted that part, but who is she? She is one of the surviving roommates. And how many times was, we're going to say Dylan Mortensen, but redacted interview by law enforcement at the time you wrote this December 23rd report? If memory serves, it was 4, I think, 3 or 4. In the affidavit, you wrote a statement that she had heard Kaylee go upstairs, yell, someone's here, and run back downstairs. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Wow. Yes, ma'am. And you used the word she thought she heard. Do you remember that? Oh, I didn't see Miss Jennings pop in, but Miss Jennings pops in. Your Honor, I'm going to object. I'm objecting based on the scope of what this testimony is supposed to be. My understanding was it was limited solely to the issue of Franks and IGG. And the court says, I was just about to ask the question. I don't recall the statements of redacted, which is Dylan Mortensen, I'm assuming, being a subject of a motion to suppress separate from the Franks issue. Am I correct about that? Ms. Taylor says that is correct, Your Honor. And so Judge Hippler says, okay, so we're not at a Franks hearing on that issue. The only issue we are at a Franks hearing on is the IGG. Ms. Taylor, all right, well, let me rephrase. Let me start from a different place. And he says, I'll sustain the objection. So Ms. Taylor comes back in with questioning now a second time. Let's go to the part of your affidavit for December 23rd, AT&T 1, the part where you put in the things particular to Brian Kohlberger. Why don't I put the chat up here so I can see y'all? Here we go. Okay. The part where you put things particular to Brian Kohlberger. Sorry. You put in the affidavit a traffic stop, I believe, from August in Moscow, Idaho. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. That traffic stop, was that on your radar before December 19th when you learned of Brian Kohlberger's name? No, ma'am. The next thing you relied on was a traffic stop at WSU. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Was that traffic stop on your radar before you knew of Brian Kohlberger's name on December 19th? No, ma'am. You put in information about front license plates being missing from Pennsylvania cars. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. The 1112, which is the house adjacent to the victim's home, the 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see whether it had a front license plate. Is that right? That sounds correct. Yes. So it was after you learned of Brian Kohlberger's name that became part of your affidavit. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Let's talk about the vehicle identification for a minute before I run back down through the rest of the affidavit after Brian was identified. When you worked with Special Agent Emil to identify a vehicle Was there more than one vehicle he identified? I don't believe there was. If memory serves, it was just the Hyundai Elantra. Would you agree that he was most comfortable with the years 2011 to 2013? Ms. Jennings, object, Your Honor, for the same reason I don't understand the scope related to IGG. Ms. Taylor says, Your Honor, I'm going to ask for a little leeway on this one. You ask for leeway every chance you can get. This is the first time you actually just came out and said it, though. I think it will be clear in about 2 more questions. It is a sealed proceeding. I'll be arguing it at Frank's. Okay. So the court says, I don't want to pollute the record, so approach. They have a bench conference. Miss Taylor comes back. They looked for the 2011 to 2013. It was their bolo. It was after Brian was identified by the IGG. They expanded the search. In the court, I forgot to highlight that. Sorry about that. That relates to what? Ms. Taylor says it's going to relate to Frank's, but it has to do with the IGG and when they identified him. I have about 2 more questions along this line. Hippler says you have the separate Frank's motion regarding the scope of the car search. Absolutely, says Ms. Taylor. Judge Hippler says that we're not here for today. We're here for IGG. I get the idea that if the IGG is suppressed, the warrants based on IGG is suppressed. That affects a lot of other things, right? But I don't think you need to get into the evidence of that at this point because it's part of the Frank's, or part of the Franz, but I think it's supposed to be Frank's. There's a separate Frank's motion on that. Ms. Taylor says there absolutely is. The next question I'm going to get to in the affidavit after the IGG was the police and Pullman running the car, and he was late, and he has laid it out, in the affidavit after the IGG without stating it. So I am doing the IGG part with him now. That car is a different year than the one the bolo is for. That's as far as I'm going with the car at this hearing. Those vehicles, they have extreme slight differences in the years. They are so cookie cutter like vehicles. I can see that being literally an honest mistake. I really could. So the court says, counsel, Ms. Jennings says, I don't understand what that has to do with IGG. It's part of a Frank's hearing related to vehicle identification. I understand her timeline, but I think that point has already been made. Ms. Taylor says, this was when I was allowed to explore this witness since he's already here and we've paid for him to come here. Man, well, we paid for you to come there too. The court says, yeah, but I didn't open up everything to Frank's because we couldn't get into all the other things that I understood we could get into the entirety of Frank's on IGG, which is why I allowed it. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're going to stick to today. Boom. Man, he is like, no, ma'am. Miss Taylor, IGG flows. It makes everything. And then he cuts her off. Well, I'm not suggesting we get into other Frank's issues that sprung in part from IGG because those are separate based, right? And so I think we just need to talk about the specific IGG stuff today in terms of Frank's. There's not a separate motion to suppress based solely on that and not the IGG. And if I'm not mistaken, apart from Frank's motions. Miss Taylor says, to suppress which? I'm not following. I'm sorry. And Hippler says, there are motions to suppress that are not Frank's related. Miss Taylor says, right, I'm not going there. Hippler says, that's evidence we can put on today, but I thought we were going to do that later today. Miss Taylor says, absolutely. And the court says, Judge Hippler says, there are various Frank's motions, one of which is to suppress. One of the Frank's motions is that there was a Frank's violation by not informing the magistrate of the use of IGG in violations as you allege them in attaining the IGG. That's the issue we are doing today in terms of evidence, and I want to stick to that. So getting into the car, which is separate, which I understand your argument is the IGG led them to expand the search of the cars, but that's not the Frank's issue itself. The Frank's issue itself on IGG is the IGG itself, and it's limited to that. Why does it say search of the cars with an S? and not car. Unless he's like, meaning because there was like 2 dates. I don't know. But okay. Ms. Taylor says, all right. Bench conference concluded. So the court says, I'm going to sustain the objection. So then Ms. Taylor comes back again for her questioning. I'm just reading the chat. And welcome in, everybody. And thanks for being here. So question, all the things in the warrant that became particular to Bryan Kohberger were not on your radar before you learned his identity through IgG. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. And you elected not to put the IgG identification in your probable cause affidavit. Is that right? Sorry, I have like a really dry throat or something tonight. Yes, ma'am. What led to that decision? That decision was a collaborative decision. We made that decision in an effort to independently verify the information that was provided to us as a tip from the FBI, in much the same way we would any other tip in law enforcement. So it was not in any way meant to obfuscate. Okay, I should be able to say that right, but we'll see what it is. We'll have it say it for me. Obfuscate. Man, I was really off on that one. It's getting late. To obfuscate any sort of information, it was simply, can we validate Mr. Kohberger's involvement in this incident or can we not? That was it. As a group effort, you decided to intentionally leave that out of your affidavit. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Taylor says, given the limitation at this point, I think that's all my questions. The court says, all right, cross-examination. And this is kind of funny. By Ms. Jennings. Good morning, detective. I only have one question for you. Let's go back to December 19th, December 20th, and the information that was provided to the team. Correct, it was a team. Yes, ma'am. And who all was a part of this team that was receiving this information telephonically from the FBI? So there were several of us. Yourself, Mr. Thompson, was there. Darren Gilbertson from the Idaho State Police. Ed Jacobson from the FBI. I believe there were a couple other folks from the FBI and ISP in the room. I don't remember exactly who they were. And then myself. There was numerous people that were involved. Would it have been essentially the team's leaders for the investigation? Yes. Was this any different than any other information sharing that occurred during this case? Not at all. There were routine teams discussions. Yes, ma'am. We had 2 official briefings every day of the investigation, morning and evening. So twice a day, we would all link up. And that was not just the command team. That was everyone who was not actively on an interview would come back to the police department, sit in the same room, and discuss the information that was learned from that day. So it was very common throughout this investigation for us to all be in the same room and discussing the same information. So you were not the only investigator receiving information from various sources. Absolutely not. So when we talk about this Exhibit A, that wasn't necessarily just your Exhibit A. No, ma'am, it was not. It was all the information that was it was all the information that the investigators had up to that point. Up to that point. Yes, ma'am, that is an accurate statement. Now related to the IgG and the information you were provided by the FBI and information provided, did you receive any medical information about Bryan Kohberger? No, ma'am, we did not. I don't have anything further. Thank you. And the court says redirect. You already know. Ms. Taylor says, yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Would we have her any other way? So let's see here. Miss Jennings was just talking to you about the team, I guess, that got together a couple times a day from November 13th until December 19th or 20th is our target time right now. And this is from Miss Taylor. Yes, ma'am. Who from the FBI was part of those daily meetings? Like I said, S.A. Jacobson was there. Maria Tyndall was there. I believe Special Agent Rob Hilly was involved. I'm trying to think of others' names. I don't remember any. There were others there. I just don't remember who they were. I apologize. That's okay. How about who else from Moscow Police Department? So Captain Blaker was there. I believe usually Detective Vargas was there. Sometimes Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings. Most nights, Chief Fry would sit in on those meetings. Captain Dallinger, Anthony Dallinger, was in those meetings from MPD. I'm trying to think of all the others. Basically, the whole command team from MPD itself would be in those meetings, and then whoever else was available from the investigation section would also come in. Who from ISP was there? Darren Gilbertson was there. I believe Detective Joe Lake was there most days. I can't remember who else was consistently there. I remember those two for sure. Lieutenant Mike Mooney was in those meetings. That was the three off the top of my head. When was the first time you talked about the identification of Brian Kohlberger in those meetings? As far as when we knew of him, yeah, December 19th. I mean, he's not going to say anything else, but December 19th. How many hours of meetings do you think you'd had up until the identification of Brian Kohlberger? Goodness, many. I don't know. It was a lot. Twice a day, every day? Yes, ma'am. 7 days a week? If not more than that, yeah. And then Miss Taylor says, thank you. That's it. The court says, thank you, detective. You can step down. And then I think this was it. Yeah, because this is the next that's the next witness to come on. So we'll stop there with reading the documents. But oh man, kind of could have went on, but let me see. We'll see how long their thing is. Oh yeah, they're in here for a minute. They talk about CODIS, the S. Okay, they're gonna. So it'll be more about the like IGG and stuff. So unknown male A is Brian Kohlberger's DNA. But who's, so we got A, B, C, D, or A, B, C, D, E. Or no, it was D, just D. That they went up to. Now we know A, B, C, or we know like 3 of them, but we don't know who's the other 2. Like, I don't know. Okay, yeah, we'll read through a chunk of this tomorrow. I might even do like a double live, like do double live. Because I think that I'm actually like not busy tomorrow. For once. But what we heard tonight was that they had him on like multiple cameras. They was even telling us the roads that they had him on. Not even talking about like when he was in Washington or Pullman, cruising around the university, because those cameras are magnificent. But yeah, No, yeah, they brought up the gloves. So it was the gloves and then the stair. They brought up the staircase. I think they brought up the gloves because they said it was 2 gloves, like a pair. Now we don't know what kind of gloves. We don't know what kind of gloves. Is the chat okay? Is everybody okay in the chat? I know that we all have differences. Some of us have differences of opinions, but it's okay, to have a difference of opinion. I just always say, use common sense. Just think about it for a minute. Think about things especially when people say things. Even me. Even if I say something that's crazy or offhand, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Ask me to elaborate, and I will, Okay. I was just reading the chat. Let me go back down to the bottom. See what you guys are saying. What Ladybug say? We all want to see the truth in this case, Squeaky. We don't judge 100% before deciding. Oh, hoping the jury doesn't either. I don't want an innocent man to be in prison nor a guilty man to walk. Exactly. Yeah, your opinion and you got yours. Exactly. You're allowed to have one. Hey, Zaza. I like the differences of opinion. I do. I really do. It's an echo dam. It's a damn echo chamber if we're all saying the same thing, you know? And some of you guys that are, you know, that think that Brian is absolutely innocent. Some of you guys I'm not going to lie. Some of you have brought up some valid points, you know, and made me think a little like, whoa, wait, let me think about that. And that's what I love, you know? It's always nice to like think a little, like, just like, I'm sure there are things that, you know, people that I think Brian Koberger is guilty, you know, they've seen what they've seen and they're like, yeah, we think that he's guilty. Same with them, you know? Me too, Zaza. I'm becoming more open to it. Now, if you would have caught me, if you want to catch a cray, Tanya, just look at my old Idaho videos. Go to my Linda Lane video. That right there you'll be like, wow, this girl's crazy. I mean, I always leave them up. So it's just, you know, we all have difference of opinion, but we can all get along. Squeaky. I'm just starting to like, when I've been reading through this transcript and stuff, and I'm just like, what? Huh? Who? Like and then the vacuum sealed container that DM saw. I'm like, what? I might need help tomorrow, maybe Reba. I don't know. I actually was doing pretty good by myself. I just because the question and answers is very fast. You know, I thought it was going to be like more of the court, like this whole like thing, and I was like, oh gosh, don't do that, Jimmy. But it's not. This is the next. Where are we at though? Oh, we're all the way at the top. We have to go down a little bit. So we're at the spot for tomorrow, 37. But welcome in. I know I have a dry throat. The vacuum object. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking that like maybe he brought one of them vacuum seal type of bags. Like they make them with a pump. I have one in my closet. I have a treadmill right here, like a walking pad. It'd be kind of hard for me to get in there right now. But you buy them at I got mine on Amazon, but you can get them at Target. But I don't remember. I recommend it because they're too expensive. And I got 2 the other day and one was busted. So let's just say that. But you can get them on Amazon. You can get like a whole like big pack of them and they're like $25 and you get like different sizes. You get some that are real big. Like you could probably put half of my body in one of those. Like I could probably fit my whole body in one of these bags. Like like I'm not even kidding you. If I like laid down, I could. I'm not going to because we do not want another like Sarah Boone situation, but I think you could. But I think that maybe he had that with him and maybe he was unwrapping it or maybe she just saw it in his hand and recognized it. But I think maybe he had the pump and that's how he got rid of his Dickies clothing. In my opinion, I think he was wearing Dickies coveralls. That's why he had the knife in his hand with the sheath and he didn't have it on a belt and he didn't have it on his pants because there was nowhere to put it. He just held it, just carried it in, thinking, I guess, that he was going to put the knife back in it. I don't know why he would bring the sheath in to begin with. I just would have left that probably in the car. Not a vacuum cleaner, no. But it could be a small vacuum of some sort, you know. But I'm thinking vacuum seal bags. What wall? I think it was on the, let me see. Let me find a room if I can find it. Because some of these I can't go into because the stinking thing is messed up, the website. And that's going to be one of them, isn't it? Yeah, that's Kaylee, Maddie's room, top bathroom. Wait. Nope, that's Santa's room. Two A was her room. Okay. Is it this room? Looks like it. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, this one is Santa's. I was just making sure. If that was her room, I probably would think it would be in that little nook. I wish I could go in and out of these rooms, but I can't. Like, I can't use the mouse for some reason. It did this before, like where I couldn't like navigate through the actual house, and then it fixed itself. Like I was like so happy. I was like, yay, I can like like navigate it. Because even like right here, where is it at? Like, see how this doesn't come up? Like if you look down here, it's supposed to come up with like all this stuff. It just is not coming up. I even thought maybe it was like my ad blocker, but it's not. Let's try it. Take the ad blocker off. See, no, it didn't work. So I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But I do have the full timeline. I forgot about that. Sleuthy Goosey gave it to me. Because that's what I wanted to go through on here. And we never ended up doing it. Oh, you were thinking like maybe he was going to put the K-bar back in the vacuum attachment? Hey, CJK. I don't know. I just don't know how he left the sheath. The sheath is huge compared to the knife. We went and looked at them and I was like, how did he leave this? I think it was the frenzy of it. I think he got a little, like something, I don't know. Where, CJK? I didn't know. Where at? I'd love to know. Who's stoned? Paco, are you? I'm not. You know me, I've been on here for an hour and 37 minutes. Right, Zaza. Absolutely. And when you go through something traumatic, you're going to change your story. Like we'll do a side-by-side if we have to. When I go to tell my story about my accident, and then we'll go play my video from 4 years ago when I told it. I bet you the stories are different. Like there's things that are different in the two. Do you know what I mean? Like, just like, yeah. Yeah, KJ, it's very intense. Man, I don't know if he would. I mean, he did leave the part of his vacuum like that collected the dust in his apartment. Are you talking about like I'm like trying to think of like what you're kind of talking about, like. Yeah, Zaza. Some people haven't. Good for them, but I've been through so many. I've been through enough for everybody. So that's cool. Yeah. I think that, yeah. Oh yeah, they don't remember what's going on when they're, yeah. Shock is a beautiful thing. It could be a beautiful thing. In my opinion, it's a little it's like a gift from God or someone above, because you don't usually remember, or like in my case, like I don't remember my car accident. A lot of it I don't remember. And thank you goodness that I don't, and that I didn't, because your girl's eyeball was bleeding, you know? Now I'm not even talking about the rest of me. I mean, like the rest, yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so thankful. But they said I was talking and I was alert. They said from a 0 to a 15, like 0 is like comatose, like you're dead. And then like it's like a scale that they have. And I was a 15 on it. They said I was just talking away. And I'm sure I do that during traumatic situations, but I don't know. They don't have to put every word that they put, in the PCA. But they don't even need Dylan in order to, really have enough evidence. They're going to have DNA. Juries love DNA. They're going to have the 3D animation model of the house. Juries love visuals. They're going to have his phone pings, his car, the cameras, surveillance cameras that picked him up all the way coming to the house, away from the house. We just learned tonight that they picked him up on Indian Ridge and the other road that I can't remember the other road name off the top of my head, but those are the roads that are going out of the house. Walenta. No, I don't know if it was Walenta, but that is one of the, in my opinion, I don't think a jury is going to say not guilty. No way in hell. That's just my humble opinion. Now, do I think that he's going to try to take a deal? I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I think he's probably thinking right now, maybe I need to take a deal, since he didn't get any of that evidence suppressed. Maybe he's thinking right now, but I don't know if they'll give him one. Maybe if he pleads guilty to all 4 unalivings and the burglary, and he gives 300 years behind bars, maybe they'll take the death penalty off the table. But I don't think they will. Bill Thompson seems pretty ready to go. He's a man of few words. Like, that's why I'm kind of scared of Bill. I'm like, Ann Taylor has done nothing but talk. And Bill has done nothing but just let her go and kind of just sit back in his chair, like this. I feel like when he comes in for opening statements, it's going to rock the internet. I feel like it is. I feel like it's going to. I just feel like it's going to. So I think that. So. Are they going to televise this? They're supposed to. As long as we're good, If this isn't, we ain't doing no Lori Daybell over here. We're not listening, no audio. We're going to make sure we get it. Yeah. They said that they're going to, so. The prosecution is saving up for the actual trial. That's what I think so too. Yeah. Because they have to go through a lot of this stuff. If Ann Taylor doesn't go in there kicking and screaming, she ain't doing her job. You know what I mean? That's why they're paying her $200 an hour to get him off. Now, if you guys are comfortable with Brian Kohlberger living next door to you guys or dating your daughters, think about that. That's all I ask you. Just think about that. Would you let Brian Kohlberger date your daughter? If the answer is yes, then no. Wow. Look at, I forgot the live reactions on. I'm doing the thumbs up. How did that come on? I thought those were supposed to be turned off. Oh, they are on. Okay, never mind. Vincent been messing with his camera today. He really be messing with it. I'm on 4K now. That's what he's been doing. There are no documents that say that his DNA is not on the sheaf. I'm going to delete your comment. Because that's wrong. You came in here talking a whole bunch of stuff last night, and we did not read any of that stuff at all. Watch my cat. And hey, Wandering Orphan. I don't like cats. Hey, you'd like my cat. My neighbors will hear me screaming. I've read them. We've been reading them. What do you mean, read them? We've been reading them. Yeah, his DNA. What was that? 28 zeros behind it. I mean, yeah, that was him. That's his. That's all. That's his sheath all day and every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So the DNA is his, buddy. It's okay. It's all right. It's going to be all right. We can't be making up new things just for fun. Okay? We can't do that. You tell me exactly what page that's on. I'll read it right now. What page is it on? Rolla, what page? So what page is it on that says the DNA is not his? What page, what document? I'm waiting. Wasn't even the same case. The documents are the transcripts. That's the only documents that are out that we have not read through all the way. We have only read 37 of 175 pages. What page? See, even Late Girl wants to know what page. 64? You believe? No, I need to know. I need to know for sure. Because that's just crazy. Who was even on page 64? Who's even, were they talking to when they're talking on page 64? Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. Okay. So, sorry. That's incorrecto. I just looked on 64. There's nothing about that on there. So, I know what transfer DNA is. I take a hit. I take that as a hit at me. I went to school for the same shit that Brian Kohlberger went to school for. He is no smarter than I am. I had a 3.8 when I graduated. The guy is not a hero. He's not some incredibly smart criminal. He left the knife sheath at the crime scene. He made some mistakes. It's like he was bound to make mistakes. He tried to go into someone's house and unalive one person that we know of. I'm thinking it was only one, but then he got his ass handed to him when there was all of a sudden 3 extra people there, and that would make anybody tired and worn out and forget things, it would just be like, yeah, just be insanity. What happened was, we all know, he took the knife out of the knife sheath and he laid it there. And and his DNA got on that button snap because he was probably messing around with it, because they're kind of hard to buckle when you first get them. Probably wanted it to be a little looser, but not too loose to where the knife falls out, but loose enough to where he can pop it on open. And he probably wasn't wearing gloves when he wiped it down. He probably did it one last time and just forgot to, just simple mistake. I wonder if he looks back on that murder house that he used to for school, the mock house. And he's like, man, that never happened at the mock house. Why, when he's sticking in his pocket, he didn't have pockets, I don't think, Christine. There is a receipt and a tag for Dickies. I think they were Dickies coveralls, and they don't have pockets. They just can be just straight up, just straight up and down, no pockets. I don't think that if it even had a pocket, it wouldn't fit into a pocket. very well. It would fall out. Like, you know, your pockets are like slanted. That's how those pockets would probably be. And the knife would be too large for it to go into a pocket. Now, it could go on a belt. That's what it's supposed to go on. You know. Exactly, pickle. Yeah, human error. And then, I mean, but I will give him, I don't know how he didn't fall on that step, you know, coming out or like by Dylan's room. He's serious. Yeah, there are some crazy creators out there. But I don't really have them on my like For You page because I don't watch anything that's Idaho 4 other than what I bring to the channel. And that's the God honest truth, actually. I only read the documents and then whatever we bring onto the show. So maybe that's a good thing for me. I know that there were some people covering it, but I just, you know, I never watch. I'm not saying that it is against anybody. I don't know why. I like got out of that. Maybe I need to get back into watching stuff by Idaho. I know that there's a couple creators that I hit the 3 little button things, the 3 little things and said, never, I'm not interested. I never want to see that person again. So that could be why I don't see some of the content that's Idaho. Now, let me see. We read where there was stuff on the banister and it never said it wasn't Brian's. Man, see, this is what we had. We had to do this last night. People hear, like they hear things and then they reword them. We went through this last night, remember? And I had to go and show you what it really said. Ashley Banfield interview. He did not say he had a kill kit. You came in here last night saying that Steve G said that Brian Kohlberger has kill kits. But Steve G did not say that. So, you know. Crazy. See, the banister, I think that they could tested that to see how old that was. That could have been an old like stain or sample, you know, like I'm trying to think of the word. But yeah, I don't know why they didn't test it. They said they didn't test, or they didn't put it in. They didn't say they never tested it. Okay, so let me retract me saying that because they never said that. They said they never uploaded it into CODIS because then their last CODIS hit like would be like avoided. So they could have tested it against Brian Kohlberger and got a hit. And the defense is just leaving that part out. The defense can do that. You know, that's when they should say objection, Your Honor, you know, but we'll see. Hey, 80s kid, are you in here? There you are. Right. Well, and if you go off of what everyone thinks, which I think the front door, I still think the front door, but what everyone has been saying is he came in through the slider and he went out through the slider. He never went around that banister. He never went around the first floor. So, you know, unless it's some sort of like crazy battle in the hallway and it got squirted all the way over to the banister. I mean, you know, that could, I'm just trying to think, you know, play devil's advocate, but yeah. He had his phone turned off that night until he was back into Pullman and then he turned it back on. So that won't work. What do these kids say? Oh yeah. Just what I said. Yeah, Brian is A. And it wasn't profile B, I don't think. It was like, I'm not going to go back through, but I think it was like D or something. It was a weird number because we were like, well, then who's B, C, and D? Or B, like, yeah, like B and C or something. But yeah, it was in what we were reading, so maybe someone will remember it off the top of their head. But I know that one of them was D. And I know Brian was A, so it must have been D. I don't think it was B, guys. I think it was D. Maybe you like if you were listening to it, maybe you heard wrong. Like B and D do sound a lot alike. I don't know if you were actually reading them yourself. I'm just trying to like go through it, but I know I won't be able to find it too fast. Oh wait. Oh wait, shit. Let's do this. You are right. It is B. Okay, so then male D, who was that? So male D is the gloves. And then male A, Brian Kohlberger. So I'm just typing in like the search bar. Male C, did they bring that up? They don't bring up male C. That's really weird. Who's C then, you know? We're missing one. We're missing one. But it says we can address the unknown male B at a later time. So, but that's very weird. I wonder who C is. Oh yeah, one person for sure. I've never heard that the blood was mixed with the victim. Who said that? Pull what up on my screen, Rolo? People wouldn't be quiet about this if it was true. If any of this stuff was true, they would be all over the news. So I don't know. Yeah, the Uber Eats guys are like, yeah, no one's vacuuming up blood. Your vacuum would what? What do you think he has, a shop vac? It's Brian's. It's Brian's. I know. Like, I don't understand why people don't want it to be. I mean, I understand it because he's your boy now. I don't know. Well, I think that it was a vacuum sealed bag, but I don't know. Hey, Roro. Now, I could see him carrying around like a friggin' small ass vacuum cleaner, like a small, like handheld, but I don't know what he would use it for. So why would you have it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I can't, like, I can picture somebody with OCD having one, but I can't picture why they would have one. They were far away from her. They were far enough away from her, I don't think, that she would have smelled anything, especially Bethany on the first floor. Yeah, I think she meant a vacuum attachment. You're right. Because she was just talking about it a minute ago. Maybe you guys could get a channel together. Because you guys really, you're really out there with some of it. Let's see. I'm just being nosy. Where'd it go? Oh, wait, not that. Oh, wow. Very new. Let's see if there's anything on. I was just seeing if there's anything else. I needed to go over with you guys. Because I wanted to, I want to go back. I want to go over and read a good chunk of this tomorrow with you guys. I'm going to go through and highlight and do all that stuff in the morning. And then I'll come on and we'll either do like 2 shorter lives or just like 1, longer live. And we'll get it all, we'll get at least most of it read. It'll probably take us like 3 different lives, but we'll get it read. But yeah. But I appreciate you guys being here tonight. I do. Drop the channels that that you go to for your Idaho coverage, if you guys don't mind, because I don't know. I really don't know any creators that are covering this case. So it would help me a little bit, and then I can go see maybe what they're talking about, and maybe where they're getting to those conclusions that they're getting to. Maybe they have different thoughts than what I have. Who knows? But yeah. And then I do want to do a members live and decorate the rest of the studio. I have a lot of stuff. I got the biggest pot today. Let me show you this thing. This thing's huge. Watch, I'll probably drop it. Look how big this thing is. Look at that. I don't know what kind of flowers I'm going to put in it yet, but I'm going to put something in here. But it's going to go over on that table. It's got a little spot on it on the back of it. I accidentally brushed up against something in my cart today, and I made it a little mark on it, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But I got it anyway. I'll just keep that to the back. But yeah, serious. I think so. 818 doesn't have a channel. How are you listening to what they say? Who's going to keep it white? It'll be white. It'll stay white over there. Because we don't do too much in here. I mean, we do, but we don't, But I've told Vincent, I said, I just want this space, to feel when you walk in here, I don't want it to feel like an office. I didn't want it to feel like I'm going to work or, I'm doing something that I didn't want to do, or I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted it when I walked, I wanted it when you walked in here to feel peaceful, just peaceful, and you're ready to sit down and do a video and just peaceful. Vincent, somebody walked in here this morning, he felt peaceful. He's like, "You're right. It's really nice. It's pretty peaceful over there now." Because I'm cozy. Exactly. I took down, today he's going to repaint this wall over here. It's just a white wall. But I had taken stuff down that I had, drilled holes, and it was whiteboards. And then I had a clear calendar. How can you use a clear calendar? Those glass calendars. I can't see the marker on the calendar. I don't know how they work. I don't even care. I got it. Didn't use it. Maybe somebody will buy it. I put all that stuff on Marketplace. And then I had some other stuff. And then I have stuff over here that I need to take down and then put wall art up, and then mirror and some wall art over on this wall. But we have pretty much everything we need. It's either ordered or it's here. So, and I got the cutest little, what is it? Those little balloon dogs, balloon animals, and they're a dog. I got one of those at Home Goods today. It was really cute. I'll show it to you guys. Yeah. Case KJ, that's funny. Wandering orphan. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We haven't heard all the evidence or seen all the evidence. I wish, though. But I hope you guys all have a great night. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Tomorrow is Sunday, so enjoy it. Enjoy that. And I'll be back on tomorrow. We'll talk Idaho, unless some crazy story breaks. Now, did you guys hear about the 3 kids found in abandoned and squatter? We might have to go over that one. Like, that's just, a little crazy. But yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna jump off here. If not, I'll read your chats all night. I can do that. And my watch told me to be in bed by 12, and I'm not. So I'm a little behind. But thank you guys for being here tonight. I do appreciate it. If you guys don't mind, it's free to do. Take a second, hit the like button for your girl. Where are we at on the likes? At least make sure that we're over 100. You could at least do that for me. We're over 100. That's great. If we can get to 120, I would be even happier. But I'll take what I can get. No, but thank you guys for being here tonight. I do appreciate it. If you are into true crime and you did appreciate the content tonight, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. I do come on normally at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but sometimes I will pop in and I'll do like a day live or a midday live, a morning live. I don't know. I just come in out of nowhere. So make sure you're subscribed and you have the bell icon all alerted. So thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now.